Okay, so I think this is going to be my final video. This cell on this battery is bad. He is like 0 volts if I measured him. The thing that you have to be careful about a bad cell like this in your battery is that it can become parasitic in nature, where if it starts shorting out in there, it can actually cause the power stored in your other cells to kind of get dissipated down in there, and they can actually drain your batteries. Sometimes you can just leave it in place like this, and it will just continue to charge. I'm planning to change the Sunny Island inverters up here in the cabinet. I'm going to change them to a 46-volt system because there's a bad cell here on this battery, and on the back battery there's a bad cell here. So it just happens to be that we have a bad cell in both batteries. In fact, I'll take this lid off here so you can, if you look in there, let's see if I can get it to focus. It almost looks like frosted, like there's a layer of frostedness. Yeah, oh, there we go. And the water, it's a little murky, okay? Same thing here. Let me see if I can get in there. Zoom in. Come on. There we go. You can see those little bubbles on the surface. And then underneath there, you can barely see it, but there's the lead bar that usually goes side to side. In fact, I'll take one off next to it. You can see that's the lead bar right there inside. That's a normal good cell. Over here, you can see that it almost looks like there's a layer of frosting in there. That is a sign that you have a bad cell. Also, when you're watering cells and you're going through and you're adding water to all your cells, pay attention to which cells are taking more water than other cells, because that's a sign of who's working harder. In this case, this guy will never take water because he's not working at all. He's 0 volts. Now, the big question is whether or not he's parasitic or not. We don't know that yet. But by changing the, let me go back to 1%. Boop, boop, boop. Come on. There we go. So during a charge cycle, if we charge this battery to 48 volts, which is equivalent, you'll be charging like 56, 57 volts. What's happening, this guy's doing nothing. So when he's doing nothing, all these other cells here have to pick up the slack. And so instead of charging to the ideal like 2.45 volts or per cell, or 2.25 volts per cell, everybody here is having to pick up the difference for that. Well, when you do the math, one cell spread over 24 cells, it's not a big differential, but it still is. It can add up to be almost a 1/10 of a volt. And the charge controller up front in the cabinet, he doesn't know that you have a cell gone on your battery. So as he's pushing 48 volts to this battery, all these other guys here are having to work about 5% harder than they normally should. Now, because this cell was underperforming halfway, this cell is dead. We were having to pick up 1.5 cells. It's about 8%. So we're basically overworking the rest of this battery by 8%. And what happens? Well, when you're overworking your battery 8%, you're burning more water. So you're going to have to water more frequently. And you're burning these cells up. These cells are having to work harder, so they're not going to last as long. That's why when you have a bad battery or a couple cells in your battery, it's good to pay attention to them and get them fixed. Now, I'm going to change the charge controller to be 46 volts just so that we're not overworking these guys. This guy is definitely dead. He's not doing anything. And so going to a 46 volt battery, I think, is a safe option for us. But I need to make sure that the customer knows to monitor this cell, because if this cell starts becoming parasitic and draining the power from the rest of the battery, then you're going to be starting to get into other trouble. In theory, you could bypass that cell entirely. Some people will just run a wire from here to there. That's not advisable, because it's still going down into the cell. And if the cell becomes parasitic, that means it can still pull power from the rest of the batteries. So it's the best thing to do is to cut this cell out. So you would cut the inner cell here and cut it there. And then you could bypass a wire from here over to here, essentially bypassing that cell entirely. And when you do that, then you become a true 46 volt battery. And that is an option, but it's just kind of a hassle to cut these inner cell connectors. It's really sad that they didn't just do little copper wire connectors. Over in England, it seems like a lot of the videos I watch, they actually have copper wires between them. It sure makes it a lot easier to service the batteries, because now you just undo 2 bolts and pull the cell. But the stupid lead connector, you got to cut them and then re-weld them, and it's just a freaking mess. Anyway, and the only reason that I can do the 46 volt system is because this one's bad and this one's bad. And the fact that there just happens to be 2 bad cells in each battery, it's safer for me to be able to downgrade this to a 46 volt battery system. If this had all good cells and this one had 1 or 2 bad cells, it's really bad, because this becomes a 46 volt or 44 volt battery. This is a 48 volt battery. And so if you're going to charge to this, these guys are going to be underperforming, and then they can become sulfated over time, which is hard on your battery. Or if you leave it at the higher voltage for, say, this battery, you're going to burn up all your other cells over here, because you're going to be working them too hard. That's why it's really important to have equally rated batteries when you have them on your trailer. All right, everybody, hopefully that was helpful. I plan to change out the yellow caps on this cell and this cell. I've got some red caps. I'm just going to put the red caps on there so that the customer will more easily identify which cells are bad. And then he can decide what he wants to do next year, or, just at least know how to monitor for these cells. I hope everyone finds these videos helpful. Man, I got a lot of videos to post today. As always, subscribe to the channel. If you find my videos helpful, you can always reach out to me and find a way to send me some money. Just makes it a little easier for me to keep making videos for you guys. All right, everyone. Cheers.